have I got for you, huh? Snuck out here for a little bit of bunny therapy time. Yeah. Who wants to sit in my lap? Huh? How about you, Clover? Are you gonna be my friend? So April 15th of 2003, I jumped headfirst into owning and breeding Angora rabbits. I found a breeding pair online and brought them home, even though home was going to be moving soon, and even though we didn't really know where home was going to be, and even though I had never had rabbits before and didn't know anything about rabbits or animal husbandry or any of that. I did know how to research. I was homeschooled, so my mom would have me do at least 2 research papers a year for all of junior high and high school. And I also grew up with the internet. So I started out asking Jeeves what to learn about my favorite prima ballerina when I was in middle school, and now I ask Google how to care for Angora rabbits. So after 1,000 blog articles and hundreds of YouTube videos and dozens of chats with other Angora owners, I felt pretty confident. Pepper and Snowball arrived home and stayed in separate crates. Snowball was in a secondhand Dumore crate from Tractor Supply, and Pepper was in just a small dog crate. These were too small for them, so I made sure that they also got daily exercise. I had a little exercise pin for them that was just some chicken wire and T-posts, and another bit of chicken wire ran down the center to separate the 2 of them. The setup worked really well, except for one day whenever I looked out of my window and into the backyard and saw that Snowball had jumped the fence in between him and Pepper, and yeah, I went as fast as I could to rectify the situation. But the next thing I was researching was the rabbit's gestation period, and soon found out that Pepper would be kindling or having babies right smack in the middle of moving week. Meanwhile, in between packing and childcare and working at the studio, which we were in the middle of our really busy end of year spring recital season, so that was fun. And I was also learning to groom the bunnies. They are, can I borrow you? So fluffy. Oh, so fluffy. So every morning, before nap time, I would go out to that exercise pen with a comb in one hand and some scissors in the other hand, and just work the best I could. But I was fighting a losing battle against mats. The mats are caused by the grass that they were playing in outside, the hay that they eat, and really just the friction of their bodies. Isn't that right? Yeah. During these grooming sessions, I was also trying to bond with the rabbits. I saved every scrap of wool that I got out of these grooming sessions. These rabbits seemed so fragile, and yet I was terrified of them. Pepper, she just really distrusted me instantly. In order to bring her back inside at the end of the day, I would have to get into the exercise pen with a towel, throw the towel at her, hoping it would cover her, at least her head, throw myself over the towel and scoop her up before she could manage to get the towel off of her, and then carry her inside wrapped in the towel. Usually it took more than one try to get this. Otherwise, she would charge at me, she would scratch at me, and if I picked her up, she would kick like crazy. And because I had no experience with rabbits, this terrified me. And so I would instantly put her down. I would not drop her, but I would quickly put her down and try again. So Pepper and I definitely had a rocky start. Snowball, on the other hand, was a perfect gentleman. He allowed me to pick him up without any extra tricks beyond just a treat. Once we moved, I quickly set to work making rabbit hutches that were bigger. You can find a video and a post all about how I did that. Pepper did, in fact, kindle. She was pregnant, but my math was off because it didn't happen during moving week. It actually happened a couple of weeks after we moved, and it was very exciting having little baby bunnies and caring for them. But unfortunately, this was also our first lesson in loss for homesteading. Growing up, I lived, my parents had a lot of property, and we lived kind of far out in the country. And so it was a pretty common occurrence for us to find animals that had been dumped or gotten lost, and we would care for them. And so I had a lot of animals growing up, and as a result, I had a lot of experience with losing those animals. Unfortunately, my husband and my daughters don't. And I'm not saying that as a I got used to it, it's easy. It's still really hard and still really sad, but it was also an expectation that sometimes babies don't make it. You know, sometimes an animal will have babies and not all of them will make it, and that's just life. That's just normal. And so that was a really hard lesson for my kids and for even my husband to learn. By the time the babies were 4 weeks old, we were down to 4 from, I think she had 8. And once they were at 4 weeks old, they were up and out of the nest and running around with their eyes open and everything. So that's whenever I got comfortable enough to give them names. There were 2 black ones and 2 white ones. And so I named a black and a white one, and my oldest daughter named a black and a white one. She named hers Shadow and Sunny. I named mine Odette and Odell from the Swan Lake Ballet. Shadow was an instant favorite. We could always tell him apart from the other black one because he had a white paw, and he was just super sweet and affectionate, not nearly as timid as his siblings. So he was an instant favorite, and we knew we were going to keep him. After watching several videos that made me both uncomfortable watching them and searching for them, I did learn how to sex a rabbit. And so I was about 75% confident that we had 2 boys and 2 girls. Unfortunately, Odette and Odell, Odette was not a girl. Odette was a boy. So I changed his name from the heroine of the ballet to the hero of the ballet, Siegfried, or Siggy for short. Yeah, can I have you? Once the babies were about this age, they had gotten quite fluffy, and I knew I was not going to be able to keep up with it with just a comb and some scissors. So I bought a dog blower. I'll link the one that exact one that I bought down in the description. You'll also see that the bunnies were living indoors. They were living in our 3rd bedroom, and the fight with wool and hay and pee and poop was a daily feat that I was losing. I was losing that battle. Once the summer temperatures started cooling off, I set to work getting those moving boxes out of our garage so that I could move the rabbit hutches in. By that time, Sunny and Odell had found another home, and Shadow was staying with us, and Siggy was with us at that time. Later in the year, I attended a local fiber festival, and I learned so much about fiber and wool and spinning and all of the things. After that, I stopped hoarding every little scrap from our grooming sessions and only kept what I sheared off that was at least 3.5 inches long. we're scooching. Don't let me sit on you. Keep sitting on that water bottle. I taught myself how to spin using a drop spindle and just recently got my first spinning wheel. I learned on wool from merino and also meat sheep wool. Spinning Angora wool is a totally different skill from spinning any other wool. I also learned that Angora wool does better with weaving rather than crocheting, so I also began teaching myself to weave. I had already learned to crochet. It's been about 4 years now, but I am still just working on all of those crafts so that I have something to do with all of this beautiful wool. So far, I have yet to spin enough Angora wool to make anything more than a little bookmark. In January, we took a family vacation and we had a neighbor come and take care of our animals for us, including the rabbits. So Snowball and Siggy are both white Angoras with red eyes. Shadow and Pepper are both gray. And at the time, Shadow and Siggy were still young enough. Their male hormones hadn't kicked in yet. And so they were able to be exercised together without fighting or anything like that. And I had told the pet sitters so. Unfortunately, they got Snowball and Siggy and Pepper and Shadow mixed up. And Snowball and Pepper ended up together. But you know what happens when the two of them get together? Yep. That's how we ended up with these guys. Yeah. It was such a surprise coming back from a separate trip with my girls in February, and I come in to greet my bunnies and there's a litter of kits in there with Pepper. And she had 8, but 2 of them were already cold whenever I found the litter. Pulled them out and counted them and found those 2 cold, and we lost 2 more after that, and so now we have these 3. Saddest of all was that 3 weeks later we lost Pepper, and there's really no answers as to why, except that it sometimes happens. Without taking the body to a vet and asking for an autopsy, there's no real way of telling for sure what happened. After speaking to some other Angora owners, the best we can come up with is sometimes it happens after the does give birth. And thankfully, these guys were 3 weeks old, so they weren't itty-bitty babies, and they quickly learned how to drink out of a bowl, and so I didn't have to bottle feed them. I just put a bowl of a milk replacement in their pen, one time in the morning, one time at night, and as you can see, they are healthy, happy bunnies, and they think I'm mama now. They're the most friendly and curious and affectionate bunnies I've ever had, which, as we're talking, it's only been a year, but yeah, losing Pepper was really hard. She and I had a rough start, but eventually she and I had bonded to the point where, unlike the boys, I would come in at night after a long day. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you get it. At the end of the day, you're touched out, you're just looking for some quiet, and I would go to feed the bunnies, shut the door, and I would pull Pepper out and set her in my lap, just like this, and just stroke her long, fluffy wool, and just let my troubles melt away. And she would let me. She would just sit there and almost purr while I was petting her, almost like she needed it too. She needed that little bit of connection at the end of the night. I saved special treats for her. Whenever I have any vegetable scraps that are safe for the bunnies, I bring them out while I'm in the middle of cooking, and I still get upset and a little choked up whenever whenever I'm cooking broccoli. Whenever I'm cutting up broccoli, I always have the big thick stem left over because my family just doesn't eat that part. And I would always give that to Pepper because that was her favorite. And so I still get choked up whenever I am cutting broccoli for the night. So these babies are, see if I can tell which is which. I believe this is Snowdrop. Yeah. This is Daffodil. Oh goodness, yeah, that is Daffy. And this baby, this is Clover. And I love her coloring. She does have a full face like her siblings. I just had to trim it off because when she would drink the milk from the saucer, she would just dive and put her whole face in, and it would cause real bad mats around her face. So I just have to keep her trimmed. Now that they are weaning, it shouldn't be a problem. But we are keeping her because I love her coloring. The other two, I have no doubt that I will find some loving homes for them. We already have some people interested. I ask myself almost every day whether or not I'm going to stick with rabbits because I love hanging out with the babies. The babies are so much fun, and I wonder if maybe I want to work on a pedigree line, but they're also stressful and a lot of work. You know, their coats, even whenever they are this age, take a lot of maintenance. And finding a market for these animals has not been very easy. I'm in a southern state, I'm in Texas, and so wool animals are a little tricky because of the heat. All wool animals, not just rabbits. And a lot of people, even homesteaders, don't know about Angora rabbits. They don't know. They do meat rabbits, but they don't do wool rabbits. So a lot of people just don't know that they're out there and that that is an option. And so it's been a little tricky finding a market for them. Ultimately, I think I am a bunny mom for life. I will always have at least one fiber friend, whether I continue to do breeding and working on a pedigree line. That will probably change depending on what season I'm in. But if you're considering an Angora rabbit or 5, I hope you'll jump headfirst into it just like I did. No regrets. That's my hair. Let's not eat my hair, please.